Hello everybody, KFox, Casey Knight here. I'm going to show y'all a tips and tricks video on how I tackle wet weather racing here on iRacing. This footage is from a recent race that I just did here at Willow Springs in the Production Car Challenge. Yes, it does rain in the desert. I know a lot of people were complaining that it was raining in the desert, but sometimes you just gotta roll with the cards given to you. So here's a guide on how I tackle wet weather racing, my lines around Willow Springs in the wet, and my philosophies in the wet on how I do it. The wet setup that I am using is in the Discords that I always have linked in my guide videos. So it'd be my personal Discord, the BMW community Discord, and the Production Car Challenge community Discord as well. So, first of all, we're just going to watch this lap out here and notice what I'm doing. I'm avoiding the racing line. I'm avoiding the rubbered in lines. I'm taking what is called the wet line. You probably heard this a lot, and the Willow Springs is the perfect track to practice this at because it's got long sweeping turns. And the racing line is very rubbered in, especially at this part. And you're going to see me driving this line. You're going to see me just avoiding the apex and just taking very long curves followed by cutting in and everything. And it also is going to show you on how I avoid puddles and how the puddles will sometimes force the line you have to take. Especially in this shot, you can actually see the massive puddle already forming. But we're going to go to my fastest lap, as that is going to show how I tackle it, as well as just how I deal with traffic as well in the wet. When you're driving in the wet, it's about patience too, because you want to go as fast as possible, but the water and wet racing is very unpredictable. So it's about being safe. And if you're looking at my throttle position, yes, that is actually an input I am doing. That's not a pedometer issue. That is my leg having a spasm. It seems so weird, but that's actually a thing that I've done. Using these tricks, I nearly lapped the field. So there's that. The SOF in this wasn't that high, but the difficulty is still there, and hopefully y'all can use these tips and tricks on how to go faster and drive better in the wet, not just at Willow Springs, but anywhere else, because these tricks do work really well. There are some tracks where taking a wet line isn't the best. I know Snetterton was one of them. If there's not really a long sweeping corner, it's going to be more like avoiding puddles and break in the non-racing line, maybe go a little bit deep in hairpins and stuff. But for right here, we're just going to use the Willow Springs tactic of going wide, staying off the racing line, because the racing line is rubbered in and it is very slick. So we're going to go to my fastest lap in this session, which was a 35.045, and you can already see there are puddles on the front straightaway, and I'm actually lapping cars in this situation. So we're going to do one where I'm in the chopper cam, because you can see, yeah, we're just going to go chase cam. This is all live. We're doing it live. Right here, as you can see, the spray is insane. There's actually standing water on the edge, so we're going to go into the cockpit. So yeah, when we're lapping these cars, we're going to see how I'm doing this. So just getting out of the way, seeing all these puddles right here. This middle line is formed with puddles, so I'm just going to stay to the right, but I want to be braking on the inside at turn 1. So when I'm past this car on the left-hand side, we're going to be moving over to the left. I'm actually going to adjust the microphone audio in the car so we don't have any so I can play it at full speed and not deafen everybody. All right, there we go. As you can see, the car ahead of me is a 8.6, and where I'm braking is way off the racing line. I'm braking in the middle, and I'm actually moving over to the right to get that grip and then line myself up to run off the apex. And about a car's length off the racing line is what I generally try to do. And just be cautious. Now, in the M2, you do have a tip. You do have tools to help you. You have the traction control. You're going to switch that all the way to on. That's going to turn that light on the left side, the DFC, to green, as well as FDS. That is your throttle position. And you have a option to put that to wet. That's just going to make your throttle more attuned to wet driving. So you're going to be doing that. There's a in-car adjustment. I have that bound to buttons on my wheel, but you can easily do that via black box. Just get up there, be in-car adjustments. And remember, the traction control, there is a delay, so it's not going to be instantaneous. All right. So through turn one, we're staying off that apex right there. This car in front of me gets a big wiggle. So we're just going all the way to the right. This is the normal line right here. Approaching turn two. Normally, you would be all the way over to the left. But if you see right there, there is a big slick patch, and then the racing line has that patch. I'm going to be going all the way to the inside and using that to slow me down. Cut across the racing line. Get a big hint of slide. And then just stay all the way over to the left, maybe have two wheels in the shiny stuff right here, and carry that speed around the outside, and then rejoin the racing line as we are looking into turn three. Turn three is the big one. There is a lot of things going on here. So normally you'd be braking where this car is up here. We are going to be aiming for this little gap right here. There's a puddle on the left and a lot of puddle and slick stuff on the right. So we are going to be shooting that gap and then swinging it around the outside. And then once we're past there, this area is extremely slick. So I do not suggest turning at all until you're nearly already slow down for that corner. So we're going to be holding on that outside, getting onto the throttle, but not punching the throttle. Punching the throttle is how you spin around, so you don't want to do that. And then into turn four, you see this lake on the right side. Well, the racing line goes right over there and into that lake. So what we're going to do is going to go right across the line and then right around the outside. There's a lot more grip out here. Actually, you see the track gets way shinier the closer you get to the inside because water goes downhill. That's how physics work. So we're going to stay around the outside, use all that better track to our advantage as we close in on this car. Now, when we're lapping this car, they're actually in the preferred line that I like to take, so I'm going to go to a different lap to show you that. But you can definitely see the difference of braking on the regular line versus braking off the racing line right here. As you can see, the track is way shinier where that bluey car is versus where I'm at, and I could brake later and harder right there, as the car on the right is going to be dealing with a lot more slicker stuff as they're kicking up a lot more puddles. Now on this inside line, I already know that lake is going to be there, so I'm braking pretty early and just making sure that I'm slowed down before that car on the outside is beside me, because I do not want to drift wide and hit them, because that will be on me. Yeah, where the racing incident is going to be a lot more, but you still have to think about the other cars. In this corner, there are multiple rivers. There is a puddle right there. There's a puddle on the apex, and then the racing line is right there. The typical line that I've been doing is braking right here and going across the line right out there, and then holding it around the outside, because I've been finding that sets me up for an exit easier than the other spots. But right here, staying as close to the left as possible, and then staying to the left again, because there is a shiny bit of lake right there. Puddle. As we're going to kick it onto the outside. Right here, I rejoin the racing line. This part of the track, it's not that extensive on what you do. Right here, I've been running around the outside just so I can stay on throttle a lot more. If you stay on the inside, you will get a little bit more slidey. And then right here, I'm braking earlier than I usually do, and I'm just staying on that outside. You can see that little patch of non-slick. That's the money spot. You're just slowing the car down, getting to where you point it, getting to where you feel comfortable, and you get onto the throttle. Now, do not, under any circumstances, get into this bottom groove right here. That's a lake. That's a puddle. That's a deep puddle. That's a curb. And that's the racing line. Slick, 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 slip and slide, death. You don't want to do that. I think and it's just not good. Do not go down there. That is how you spin out. That's how you lose the race. And that's how you, well, not win or not make the position. Because I'm going this is as close as I will ever get to that inside line. I'm just staying off that curb, staying off that inside line, like I said, car's length to that apex. I'm really in the slick stuff right now. As you can see, my car is sliding. I'm counter steering and everything. You don't want to be down there, and you're going to finish that lap. That lap was pretty good. It was the fastest of the session. Now, there were other guys in the session that were going faster than me, but this is how you do it safely. You could go quicker by taking a little bit more adventurous lines, but even in the replay, you can see how much water I'm actually kicking up, even though that it's fast forward. It's funny to see the water physics are tied to the speed of your replay. But in this one, we're going to just be chasing. Look how I take turn 3 again. Inside line, middle line. So we're heading into the braking zone. That middle line, you can really... Oh. Now let's see this. I'm totally not editing this out because this is pretty funny. Okay, back to turn 3. Small hiccup. You can really see the lake, the puddle right here as well. So we're going to be braking early and then going around the outside. And that is really going to help us get grip on the exit. Swoop around here. We're just playing connect the dots with avoiding the puddles at this point and forming our racing line around here. This is where we really put that into full effect. So we know there's a puddle on the apex of this curve. We know there's a puddle on the apex of that curve, and we know that this line right here is extremely slick. And there's puddles off the exit. So we're going to have to take our racing line that we know it and throw it out the window. Break off the apex of this curve, brake early, cut across the racing line, and we're going to go around the outside of this curb. And we're going really around the outside because this is slick. There's rubber all over this area. And it's caked in rubber. There's no drainage on this track, so we got years of rubber buildup right here. So we're staying around the outside as long as possible as we aim for the edge of this puddle and just staying all the way over to the right side so we can get a good launch off this exit. And then we can give ourselves a little bit onto the inside and onto the middle of the track, and then go onto the inside and rejoin the regular racing line. That is the best way I know how to take that corner without spinning out, without getting loose. You know, you have the traction control to help you in that situation and everything. But what if you're not comfortable in the rain and you don't know the track? Well, there is a very cheeky solution to your problem, to this situation, on how to practice driving in the wet, on how to find out racing lines and where it's going to get wet up. And it's also very good for learning a track. It's called the driving line. This is really useful for visualizing a lap and using it to your advantage. We're going to watch my line versus the racing line, and the racing line is only tied to the dry line. I know iRacing is working on a reactive racing line that goes to the best of the track knowledge, but that was about a year ago when wet weather was introduced. It is in the sporting code that the track is a wet. Once the track is wet, this racing line will go to the wet line, but from what I see, that still has not happened, but it's still in the racing code. So that's actually something that they're working on, but they've been hush-hush about. So, gonna watch this lap, my line versus the racing line, braking way out of the braking zone, because where the braking zone is usually where all the other drivers are going to be and where the buildup of rubber is. Staying off that line, and we're going to actually run here in the cockpit. Rejoining that line, it's going to be slick on the exit, but we already have that grip and speed built up, so we can use that momentum to push through. Braking all the way onto the inside, avoiding those two puddles right there, and then cutting across the racing line and going all the way to the outside to that fresh track out there. You actually saw that big wiggle that I just had. And just using that outside line to our advantage to really put down the throttle and just keep the car in control. Rejoin the racing line. Aim for these two puddles right here in the middle, as we are going to cut through them. Go onto the outside of the racing line. Use that throttle to get our speed up. Avoid this leg. Avoid the racing line. Go onto the outside of the racing line again. And use the elevation to our advantage, as we can get onto the throttle and really close into on this car that is staying on the racing line. Go onto the outside, brake early. Make sure you get the car slowed down, especially if you have a car on the outside. Avoid these puddles at all costs. Get onto the throttle again. Just deal with it right there, because that entire area is slick, because it just throws your car up high. And then heading into the final two corners, just stay on the outside, lift off the throttle, just make sure you keep the car in speed. Do not overspeed, because if you overspeed and you're going to go just sailing away, and then into this final corner, you're going to be braking, staying on the outside, staying on the outside, staying on the outside, staying on the outside, cutting in to get that little flick right there. Too much of a flick, and then that is a lap, and what you should be aiming for every lap with wet weather. Yeah, there are going to be times when the wet weather is going to be changing around and making lines a little bit more difficult, but that is, I would say, the best rule of thumb to go for. Avoid the racing line if the track is declared wet. If you see puddles, the track is wet, you might want to start avoiding the racing line. Now, before that, a good rule of thumb to judge if you're putting on wet tires or not. We're gonna actually just pop that over here so we can just enjoy scenic views of rainy Willow Springs. A good rule of thumb on how to judge when you're putting on wet tires or not. If you have your spotter set to high chattiness, your iRacing spotter had to set to high chattiness, they will inform you if the track, if you're going from a dry to a wet track. If it's raining, stay on the dry tires until they announce the track is declared wet. You're going to be, a good rule of thumb is a 112% rule. That's roughly in a 90-second lap time, 1 minute 30. That's roughly about 12 seconds slower than your dry time. That is going to be when you want to put wets on. Now, there are going to be times where you're going to have to put strategy in this race. We had rain come into this race with 10 minutes to go. That was when the track was declared wet. Everybody stayed out, and that was very hectic and very scary. There's actually a very fun, there were two streamers with me, Kevin Parrish and Megabyte. I think Megabyte might upload a VOD of that. If so, I will put a card in the top right and a link to that in the description, so you can see on how that race went. I used those tricks to my advantage in there, and it was just a lot of fun. Yeah. So once the track is declared wet, you're going to go into the pits, see how much time is left. Sometimes you might need to do a little pre-race check on how long does it take to go through the pit lane. It's 40 seconds, by the way. I'm doing that for you. So you're going to have that in the back of your mind, but you're also going to say, how much time am I going to be gaining back on this if these guys are doing about 12 seconds slower and I'm going, then the fastest lap time, I think I was doing about a 142 on slick tires in here. And in the wet, I'm doing about 135. So that's a 40-second deficit you're giving yourself. And within 10 minutes, you're doing about 5 lap. No, not 5. You're doing about, I would say about 5 to 6 laps in that 10 minutes. And you're gaining roughly 7 seconds in that time. It's going to add back up, and you're going to be much more comfortable, much more safer and easier to drive than driving on slicks. Because if you're driving on slicks in the wet, you're just ice skating the entire time. So whenever the track is declared wet, be on wet tires. If it's not declared wet, stay on dries until it is. That's just my rule of thumb. I used to go, if you could see spray out the back of your car, that was way too conservative. Other tips and tricks: stay off the racing line, especially if it has long swooping corners. Look where the puddles are going to be. If you are unsure on a wet line and you want to practice it, don't be afraid to put on the racing line and practice with that on. It's a very good tool to learn where the grip is going to be built up, where to go, and it's very effective in learning a wet track quickly and easily. I hope these tricks helped you out. Once again, my wet setup is linked in the description to my Discords, my personal Discord, Foxline Racing, the BMW community Discord, as well as the Production Car Challenge Discord. I hope all of you enjoyed this video. If it was helpful in any way, please leave a like, leave a comment. Any feedback is all welcome. My name is Casey Knight, KFox. Fox out.